The ocean has always carried secrets, hidden beneath its restless blue surface. Some say the waves speak, whispering messages to those who listen. At dawn, the shore awakens, and the rhythm of water tells stories older than time. Legends say Poseidon does not roar. He murmurs through the rise and fall of tides. Every whisper drifts like a soft thread between the sea and the soul. I invite you to close your eyes and hear the gentle call of the waves. The whispers are not warnings, but invitations to journey deeper within. They carry echoes of lost songs, forgotten prayers, and timeless wisdom. Fishermen hear guidance in them, travelers hear comfort, and dreamers hear hope. Some call it imagination, yet others call it Poseidon's voice. It is not a command, not a demand, but a soft reminder to be still. Like a lullaby, the waves hold silence within their flowing words. Tonight, we listen to a story carried on the tide. A story not of storms or fury, but of connection and calm. Lean closer to the shore. Let the sea speak for itself. This is the whispers of Poseidon's waves. The traveler stood at the edge of the shore, listening to the rhythm of the waves. The morning light spread gold across the horizon, painting the sea with warmth. Each wave rolled forward, then retreated, as if breathing with the earth itself. The sound was steady, yet within the steadiness, there was something strange. It was not only water meeting sand, but a cadence that felt alive. The traveler closed their eyes, allowing the ocean to speak in whispers. It began softly, like a sigh drifting across the surface of the world. Then it grew clearer, shaping itself into patterns the mind could almost hold. Some phrases were too faint to grasp, like words dissolving into mist. Others struck the heart directly, heavy with meaning, yet light with tone. The traveler wondered if this was imagination or something greater. The sea has always been a keeper of secrets, hiding stories in its depths. Perhaps Poseidon himself placed his breath into the water, guiding its sound. The traveler remembered tales heard in childhood of gods who whisper wisdom. Old voices told of a sea that never forgot, carrying memory in its tide. Now, standing here, the traveler felt those tales rise to life. The wind bent low, pulling the waves into gentle arcs against the sand. The whispers came again, speaking of patience, speaking of time. They spoke not in words, but in tones that carried meaning beyond language. The traveler understood without knowing how, as if the heart translated the sea. A phrase repeated itself. Listen, and you will find the way. The sound lingered like a shell pressed against the ear. The traveler bent to the water, touching the cool foam with trembling hands. The sea did not pull back sharply, but welcomed the touch with ease. The whispers grew softer, like a voice shy of being too loud. The traveler breathed deeply, feeling the salt air fill their chest. It was a call, not to wander far, but to remain present. The ocean asked for nothing more than attention, nothing more than stillness. The traveler felt both small and infinite, a single soul in vastness. The waves continued, shaping silence into sound, and sound into silence again. The whispers told of journeys yet to come, but also of resting here. They urged trust in the rhythm of things, trust in the unseen. The traveler lingered on the shore, unwilling to break the moment. Birds circled above, yet their cries seemed distant, softened by the sea. The only voice that mattered was the low murmur of the tide. It was not a storm, nor a roar, but a steady, guiding hum. The traveler leaned closer, as if each wave might reveal more. Every crest shimmered with meaning, every fall folded into quiet wisdom. The whispers reminded the traveler that life itself is a tide. It rises, it falls, and yet it always returns with purpose. The travelers stood straighter, as if the words had shaped their stance. They carried no fear, no weight, only a calm sense of belonging. The sea seemed endless, yet it felt like home in that moment. The travelers smiled faintly, letting the whispers move through their being. It was not a lesson learned, but a truth remembered. The tide had called, and the traveler had answered by listening. In the distance, the horizon shimmered with possibility, boundless and free. The traveler knew this was the beginning of a deeper journey, not outward alone, but inward, into the heart shaped by the sea. The whispers faded slightly, yet their presence lingered within the traveler's soul. The shore was no longer just land and water, but a sacred threshold. The first step had been taken, guided by Poseidon's gentle waves. The village rested quietly along the curve of the bay, shaped by centuries of waves and wind. Its houses were small, whitewashed, and crowned with roofs faded by salt and sun. Narrow paths wove between them, leading always back toward the sea. The villagers rose with dawn, their lives bound to the rhythm of water. Children learned to walk on sand before they learned to walk on stone. Their lullabies were not sung by mothers alone, but by the ocean itself. Every door opened to the scent of salt carried inland by the breeze. Nets hung drying in the sun, patched and repatched by patient hands. The sea gave, and the sea asked for respect in return. Stories of this exchange were told nightly by firelight, woven into memory. The traveler entered this place with quiet steps, listening for the pulse of belonging. Elders welcomed them with eyes as steady as the horizon. They spoke of the sea not as a thing, but as a companion, alive and wise. Some said Poseidon watched over the village, not as a god of wrath, but of balance. The whispers of the waves were believed to be his breath reaching the shore. Sailors heard direction in the currents, knowing when to cast their nets. Mothers heard comfort in the tide, soothing children into dreams. Dreamers heard promises, carried in foam that shimmered at twilight. The travelers sat among them, drinking in the quiet music of their lives. One elder spoke slowly, voice as worn as driftwood, yet strong as tide. He said the sea speaks differently to each soul, never repeating the same song. What one hears as guidance, another hears as memory, another as hope. The traveler leaned forward, eager to absorb every word. The elder's gaze softened, as if seeing the traveler's unspoken questions. "Listen long enough," he whispered, "and the sea will answer what you did not ask." The villagers nodded, for they knew this truth from years of tide and time. No one doubted the ocean's presence, for it lived in every heartbeat of the place. The market bustled with fish freshly caught, yet always with reverence. Every net pulled from the water carried a silent prayer of gratitude. They believed greed angered the sea, while humility invited harmony. Children were taught not to throw stones into the tide, but offerings of flowers. They were told each petal carried a message, each ripple a reply. The traveler saw devotion not carved in temples, but written in daily life. The whispers of Poseidon were not feared, but cherished as guiding light. At dusk, the village gathered near the water's edge, waiting for the tide to rise. The air cooled, lanterns glowed, and voices hushed as the waves drew near. The sea's song swelled, low and unending, a hymn older than language. The traveler closed their eyes, letting the sound pass through them. The villagers listened too, yet each seemed to hear something unique. Some smiled, some wept softly, some simply breathed in silence. The traveler realized the whispers belonged to no one and to everyone. They were not secrets to be owned, but gifts to be shared. The elder placed a hand on the traveler's shoulder, steady and kind. "You hear it now," he said, "but soon you will hear more." The traveler felt the words sink deeper than the sea itself. Night fell gently, the stars mirroring the lights of lanterns along the shore. The waves continued their soft conversation, endless and unbroken. The village slept in harmony with the ocean's breath, and the traveler, though still a stranger, felt a thread of belonging stir. The whispers had followed them here and now spoke through every soul. This village was more than a place. It was a living part of the tide. The traveler knew their path was just beginning, carried forward by the waves. The traveler wandered beyond the village, following the curve of the endless beach. The sand stretched like a silver ribbon, soft underfoot and warm with fading sun. Every step carried the traveler closer to the voice that lingered in memory. The sea was calm, yet its whispers fluttered through the air like hidden birds. At twilight, the horizon glowed, blending sea and sky into a single canvas. The traveler paused often, listening for fragments of meaning within the tide. It was not speech in the human sense, but something older, deeper. The waves seemed to form patterns, like phrases written in water. Each rise and fall echoed with intent, though the words remained veiled. The traveler's heart beat faster, tuned to the rhythm of the shore. Seagulls wheeled above, their cries dissolving into the sound of surf. A breeze lifted hair and clothing, carrying salt across the traveler's skin. The whispers returned, clear for a moment, then fading again. They spoke of patience, of waiting without fear, of listening without haste. The traveler felt a pull, as if drawn into conversation with the sea. The farther they walked, the louder the voice of Poseidon became. It did not shout, it did not command, it simply invited. There was a kindness in the waves, steady and eternal. The traveler lowered to the sand, sitting where foam brushed the ankles. The water curled around them like a greeting, cool yet gentle. Closing their eyes, they let sound replace sight, surrendering to the whispers. Images rose in the mind, soft as dreams at the edge of sleep. They saw voyages not yet taken, paths not yet walked, but waiting. The sea showed glimpses of dolphins dancing, of stars mirrored on water. The whispers spoke again. Trust the tide. It knows the way. The phrase lingered, simple yet vast, echoing inside the traveler's chest. It was both guidance and comfort, like a hand reaching through silence. The traveler wondered why the sea had chosen them to hear. Was it chance, or was it always meant to be this way? The question dissolved as quickly as it formed, carried away by waves. The sea required no reason, only presence, only listening. The traveler leaned back, hands pressed into wet sand, heart steady. Above, the first stars pricked the sky, faint yet eternal. The whispers wove into the night air, a song without end. They spoke not of power or fear, but of balance and peace. The traveler felt lighter, as if unburdened by time itself. Every worry seemed to dissolve into the salt spray of the sea. The whispers promised that answers need not be rushed, they would come. The tide, like life, carried what was needed to the shore in time. The traveler breathed with the ocean, exhaling when the waves retreated. It became a shared rhythm, a communion with something infinite. The whispers reminded them that they were never truly alone. The sea, vast as it was, cradled every soul willing to listen. The traveler opened their eyes to darkness filled with starlight. The ocean shimmered silver under the moon, alive with quiet grace. Still the whispers continued, soft and persistent, weaving into thought. The travelers stood at last, stronger though they had not moved at all. They knew the sea had given not answers, but a way of hearing. And that hearing itself was the first step toward true understanding. The beach stretched on, endless, carrying the whispers into forever. The traveler followed the tide, each step guided by Poseidon's voice. The next morning arrived with skies painted soft by dawn and clouds drifting slow. The traveler walked the shore again, guided by the whisper of unseen voices. The tide had left behind treasures scattered like secrets waiting to be found. Among them lay a shell unlike any the traveler had ever seen before. It shimmered faintly, not with color alone, but with something that felt alive. The curves of the shell carried delicate ridges, as if carved by careful hands. When lifted, it was light, fragile, yet humming with quiet energy. The traveler held it close, and the sea seemed to grow silent around them. Then came the sound, faint at first, like breath drawn through a hollow flute. The shell was not empty. It carried a voice that belonged to the tide. The traveler pressed it to their ear, and the world shifted into new rhythm. Within its spiral, the whispers grew stronger, weaving words from foam and wind. They spoke of journeys far beyond sight, of mysteries resting beneath the waves. It was as if Poseidon had hidden a fragment of his voice inside. The traveler listened, each phrase falling like a drop of water onto stillness. The shell told of respect for the ocean, of balance kept by humility. It spoke of travelers who once listened, leaving offerings on the shore. It recalled sailors who followed the sound home when stars had failed them. The traveler's breath caught, for it felt less like a story than a memory. The shell pulsed lightly in the hand, as though alive with heartbeat. The whispers deepened. Do not seek to command the sea, but walk beside it. The phrase sank into the traveler, planting calm rather than questions. They lowered the shell, and the world outside returned in gentle motion. The sea roared faintly again, yet its sound was now a chorus, not noise. The traveler felt connected, as if the ocean itself had shared a secret. The shell remained warm, carrying the promise of more if one continued to listen. They tucked it carefully into their cloak, treating it as gift, not prize. Walking farther along the sand, the traveler noticed patterns drawn by the tide. They seemed to mirror the curves of the shell, spirals etched into the earth. Every crest and fall of water now carried layered meaning, rich and deep. The traveler realized the shell was not an end, but a doorway. Through it, Poseidon's whispers could be heard even when the waves were still. It was a bridge between the human ear and the voice of the sea. The traveler paused, kneeling, pressing the shell once more to the side of their head. This time, the voice was clearer, like words spoken directly to the heart. It said, "Carry me with care, for I am memory. I am guidance. I am tide." Tears welled unbidden, for the sound was not stern, but infinitely kind. The traveler whispered back, though no answer was expected, only gratitude. The waves responded anyway, lapping softly at the sand with tenderness. Seagulls wheeled above, as though circling to honor the quiet moment. The shell had become a companion, delicate yet filled with eternal weight. The traveler rose, footsteps steady, as the sun climbed higher into the sky. They knew this was the beginning of deeper listening, not an end. The sea had placed a gift in their hands, and with it, responsibility. Each step carried new awareness, each sound of surf a sentence to decode. The village in the distance seemed smaller, yet bound by the same whispers. The traveler felt no need to rush, for the tide itself was their guide. The shell hummed faintly with each breath, reminding them of the promise kept within. It was a promise not of power, but of harmony, of listening beyond words. And as the morning light shimmered across the waves, the journey deepened. The whispers of Poseidon now walked with the traveler, sealed in a shell. Night fell softly across the coast, and the traveler held the shell close. The sound within it deepened, richer under the silver glow of the moon. As the tide rose, the whispers seemed to blend with the starry sky. It was no longer only the ocean's voice, but something vast, eternal. The traveler felt the presence of Poseidon stirring within the waves. Not with thunder, not with storms, but with quiet majesty. The sea was calm, yet its stillness carried a power undeniable. The traveler closed their eyes, surrendering to the rhythm of the tide. The shell pulsed faintly, and then the vision began to form. It was not dream, not waking, but a space between worlds. The traveler stood upon a shore of endless water, glowing like glass. From the horizon rose a figure vast and luminous, shaped by the sea. Poseidon emerged, not with rage but with grace, his trident resting in calm. His presence carried both strength and serenity, the weight of timeless oceans. The traveler did not fall, did not fear, but felt embraced by wonder. Poseidon's voice did not thunder. It resonated like waves against soft sand. He spoke without words, yet every thought became clear in the heart. You hear my whispers, and you carry them with care, the voice said. The traveler bowed the head, unsure if reverence was enough. Poseidon's gaze held not judgment, but a tide of quiet understanding. The sea is not mine alone, he continued. It belongs to all who honor it. Do you see now why the waves speak, why they call to your soul? The traveler felt the truth settle deep, heavy yet light at once. The ocean is memory, Poseidon whispered, and memory must be tended. The vision rippled with currents of starlight swirling across the sky. Images filled the traveler's mind. Sailors guided home, children lulled to sleep. The ocean's voice was part of every life, touched by its breath. Poseidon reached his hand to the traveler, vast and shimmering with water. When the traveler reached back, their fingers touched not flesh, but tide. In that touch flowed patience, wisdom, and an infinite calm. The sea within Poseidon echoed with kindness, a reminder of balance. You will not command the ocean, he said, but you may walk beside it. The traveler nodded, heart filled with both humility and awe. The figure began to fade, dissolving like foam into horizon's edge. But the voice lingered, soft, carried on unseen currents. Remember, the sea whispers not for power, but for peace. The vision dissolved, and the traveler returned to the midnight shore. The waves lapped gently, moonlight shimmering across their endless surface. The shell was warm, still alive with Poseidon's resonance. The traveler breathed deeply, touched by a calm that words could not hold. The ocean stretched infinite, but now it felt like a companion. Poseidon had not come with command, but with a gift of presence. The travelers smiled faintly, realizing the sea's whispers would never sound the same. They now carried not only sound, but the god's gentle breath within. Each wave was a reminder, each hush a soft echo of the divine. The traveler rose, holding the shell close, listening once more. The whispers continued, endless, like a conversation without final word. The night deepened, stars thickened, and the sea breathed steady. In that moment, the traveler knew the journey had truly begun, not outward toward distant shores, but inward toward a deeper truth. The whispers of Poseidon had entered their soul and would remain forever. The morning sun rose, gilding the horizon with light that shimmered across the waves. The traveler awoke to the sound of gulls and the rhythm of steady surf. The shell lay beside them, humming gently, as though greeting the new day. Each pulse seemed in tune with the heartbeat of the ocean itself. The traveler lifted it to their ear, and the whispers stirred once again. This time, the voice did not bring visions, but a story carried by tide. It spoke of islands hidden far from charts, places where sea and sky kissed. It told of coral gardens alive with color, home to creatures of ancient grace. The traveler listened, each word weaving landscapes unseen yet deeply real. The whispers were not mere echoes, but invitations to imagine and believe. They carried wisdom too, that beauty lives where patience meets silence. The traveler's heart grew still, learning not only to hear, but to feel. As the sun climbed higher, the whispers shifted to memory of old sailors. They spoke of men who sang to the waves, believing songs could guide them. Their voices, though gone, lingered in the foam, shaping melodies eternal. The traveler closed their eyes and almost heard the chorus within the tide. It was soft, harmonious, blending with the sea's timeless hum. The shell pulsed again, and the words returned with steady clarity. Not all who seek the sea find peace, but all who listen will be changed. The traveler breathed deeply, letting the phrase anchor into their soul. A gentle breeze swept across the shore, scattering sand like fleeting thoughts. The whispers faded, leaving space for silence, which felt just as sacred. The traveler rose, carrying the shell, walking along the water's edge. Each step pressed into wet sand, washed clean as the waves followed. The rhythm reminded them that nothing is held forever, yet nothing is lost. The sea gives, the sea takes, and through both, it whispers of balance. In the distance, the traveler saw children gathering shells and laughing. Their joy echoed like bells, free and untethered, guided only by wonder. The traveler smiled, realizing the sea spoke not only in depth, but in play. Even laughter was part of its eternal conversation with the shore. The shell grew warm again, as though agreeing with this simple truth. The traveler paused, watching the children, and felt gratitude swell. The ocean was not a mystery to be solved, but a companion to cherish. With that thought, the traveler turned back to the sea and bowed. The whispers had taught that reverence was not fear, but gentle respect. The water rushed forward, brushing their feet as if answering the bow. A soft shimmer rose from the tide, sparkling under the sunlight. The traveler lifted the shell once more, hearing a final phrase for the day. Carry what you learn, not as weight, but as light to guide others. The words flowed through the traveler like currents, leaving warmth behind. They lowered the shell, pressing it gently against their chest. For the first time, silence felt complete, as though nothing more was needed. The waves rolled on, steady and infinite, whispering in their eternal tongue. The traveler walked away slowly, each step carrying the sea within. The day stretched wide and bright, filled with promise shaped by water. And though the whispers rested, their echo lingered in every breath. The journey was no longer about distance, but about depth of listening. And with each heartbeat, the traveler carried the ocean's story further. The evening sky glowed with streaks of amber as the traveler reached the harbor town. Boats rocked gently against wooden piers, their masts swaying like tall reeds. The air smelled of salt and smoke, mingled with voices calling across the docks. Fishermen hauled nets heavy with silver catch, their laughter echoing over the tide. Children darted between barrels, playing games that ended in sudden bursts of joy. The traveler watched, holding the shell close, feeling its warmth pulse quietly. The whispers stirred, softer now, as though cautious in the noise of people. It was the first time the traveler had entered a place so alive with sound. The ocean's voice usually filled the air, but here it mingled with human life. Every shout, every splash, seemed woven into Poseidon's endless song. The traveler sat near the pier, watching the reflection of lanterns on water. The shell pulsed again, and the words rose faintly through the hum of voices. They too belong to the sea, for their lives are bound to its rhythm. The traveler listened closer, understanding that the whispers spoke of community. It was not only solitude that revealed the sea's secrets, but togetherness. The fishermen sang old songs as they worked, voices rough but steady. The words carried stories of storms, of hope, of gratitude for calm seas. Each verse was an offering, a way of honoring the power of the tide. The traveler closed their eyes, hearing how the voices blended with the waves. It felt as though Poseidon listened too, nodding with the rhythm of the song. The shell grew warmer, echoing the unity of sea and people. The traveler rose and walked through the narrow streets of the harbor. Vendors called out, offering fruit, cloth, and trinkets from faraway lands. A woman sold small shells strung together, promising they carried ocean blessings. The traveler touched one necklace, smiling at its quiet resemblance to their own shell. The whispers stirred again. Symbols hold meaning only when hearts give it. The traveler nodded, tucking the thought away like a pearl of wisdom. At the edge of the town square, an old man played a flute of bone. Its notes drifted like sea breeze, winding through the chatter and lantern light. The traveler sat, listening, and the shell hummed gently in agreement. It was another voice of the sea, transformed into music through human breath. The old man's eyes met the traveler's, and he smiled knowingly. Without words, it was as if he too had heard Poseidon's whispers once. The traveler bowed slightly, grateful for the shared unspoken recognition. The night deepened, stars appearing like scattered salt above the roofs. The harbor lights shimmered on the water, echoing constellations in gentle motion. The shell pulsed faintly, one last time before quieting into stillness. The traveler understood. The sea had many voices, not only waves or gods. It spoke through laughter, through song, through the harmony of community. Each sound of the town was part of the ocean's eternal chorus. The traveler sat until the voices thinned, leaving only the hush of water. They held the shell close, whispering thanks for the lesson learned. The tide rose, washing softly against the pier, as if echoing gratitude. The traveler felt peace in knowing the whispers could be heard anywhere, not just on lonely shores, but also in places where life thrived. The journey carried them forward, deeper into both silence and sound. For the ocean was vast, and its voice belonged to all who listened. And as the harbor settled into night, the traveler's heart grew still. The whispers of Poseidon lingered, like a tide that never truly recedes. The dawn broke gently over the harbor, painting the sea in pale gold and rose. The traveler awoke to the sound of waves lapping softly against the stone quay. The shell rested warm in their palm, steady as if breathing with the tide. Its whispers returned slowly, like the hush of morning wind through tall grass. This time the voice spoke of journeys not across the sea, but within. Those who listen deeply find oceans in their own hearts, the shell murmured. The traveler walked along the quiet docks, lanterns still glowing in dim light. Fishermen prepared silently, tying ropes and checking nets with practiced hands. The world was hushed, suspended between night's shadow and day's promise. The traveler paused, gazing at the water's surface, reflecting streaks of pink. Every ripple seemed alive, as though carrying hidden messages from beneath. The shell pulsed faintly, guiding the traveler toward the edge of the pier. They leaned close, listening, not with ears alone, but with an open spirit. The ocean whispered of patience, of how waves take time to reach their shore. It spoke of depth unseen, of silence that holds more truth than words. The traveler felt these lessons like currents shaping the mind's quiet harbor. They understood the sea was not only vast outwardly, but infinite within. A gull called overhead, breaking the stillness with its sharp cry. Yet even that cry seemed woven into the ocean song, not apart from it. The traveler smiled, realizing that harmony included both silence and sound. The shell grew warm again, carrying a phrase like a prayer. Balance is not found in absence, but in the weaving of contrasts. The traveler carried the words gently, like shells gathered on a beach. They walked toward the market where the town was stirring to life. Voices rose, wheels turned, and the smell of bread drifted through the air. The ocean's whispers did not fade. They lingered beneath the bustle. Each laugh, each call, each clang of metal rang with hidden rhythm. The traveler realized the sea spoke not only through water, but through people. Its currents flowed in voices, in movements, in the tides of daily living. The shell thrummed softly, affirming this deeper understanding. Do not seek the ocean only in stillness, it whispered. Seek it also in life. The traveler's heart swelled, for the message rang with undeniable truth. The sea was not separate from the world, it was woven into all of it. As the day brightened, the traveler walked beyond the town's edge. Fields of tall grass bent under the touch of the ocean breeze. Even here, far from the surf, the whispers followed in quiet currents. They spoke of how rivers carried memory to the sea, uniting land and water. Every stream, every drop of rain, was part of Poseidon's endless story. The traveler knelt, pressing the shell to the earth, listening carefully. The ground itself hummed faintly, echoing the ocean's eternal song. The shell glowed warm against the soil, bridging water and earth. Nothing stands apart, it whispered. All flows together in time. The traveler breathed deeply, heart filled with reverence for this truth. The sea was not a distant realm, but a thread in every living moment. They rose, carrying the shell, the weight of its lessons, gentle yet firm. The sky stretched wide, clouds drifting like sails upon a pale horizon. The traveler walked onward, guided by whispers that deepened with each step. The journey was no longer about finding the sea, but recognizing it everywhere. And as morning gave way to day, the shell pulsed once more with promise. The whispers of Poseidon would not fade. They were part of every breath. The afternoon sun stretched across the sky, turning the sea into a mirror of shifting light. The traveler walked along a winding path where cliffs rose sharp above the restless waves. The shell rested quietly in their hand, no longer pulsing but humming faintly like memory. The ocean's voice seemed softer here, shaped by the high stone walls of the coast. It spoke of endurance, of how even stone was carved slowly by the patient tide. Strength is not in resistance, it whispered, but in the art of yielding. The traveler stopped, brushing fingers against the weathered cliff, rough and ancient. The stone bore lines of centuries, grooves etched by water's persistent hand. They realized the sea was not only a force, but a sculptor of time. Every shore, every rock told stories written in waves instead of ink. The path narrowed, leading toward a secluded cove hidden beneath arching cliffs. Here, the sound of the sea deepened, echoing like a heartbeat within stone. The traveler felt enclosed, as though stepping into a chamber of the ocean itself. The whispers grew clearer, woven with the rhythm of the tide below. They spoke of hidden places within the soul, sheltered yet waiting to be known. The shell warmed again, inviting the traveler to listen without fear or haste. "Do not rush to uncover all mysteries," the sea whispered. "Let them reveal in time." The traveler sat upon a smooth rock, gazing at the water folding into the cove. Foam spread across the sand like threads of lace, vanishing as quickly as they formed. Each wave seemed a reminder of impermanence, of beauty found in fleeting moments. The gulls wheeled overhead, their cries softened by the cavern's deep embrace. The traveler felt a peace unlike before, not born of silence, but of acceptance. The shell thrummed with steady warmth, echoing the lesson of the sea's voice. "You are not here to conquer the ocean, but to walk beside it," it said. The traveler closed their eyes, feeling the pulse of the tide in their chest. It was as though their heartbeat and the ocean's rhythm had become one. The whispers carried a truth both simple and profound, like water shaping stone. Patience, balance, and endurance. The traveler carried these gifts within now. When they opened their eyes, the tide had risen slightly, covering the rocks below. The sea had shifted, yet its song remained constant in its gentle power. The traveler rose, feeling stronger not in body but in quiet understanding. The shell glowed faintly, as though satisfied with the moment of stillness. The path forward was narrow and steep, leading toward open land again. The traveler climbed slowly, each step steady, the whispers guiding unseen. At the top of the cliff, the horizon stretched vast and infinite. The sun lowered slightly, casting a silver sheen across the restless water. The traveler stood tall, wind sweeping through their hair, shell pressed to their chest. The sea whispered again, softer now, almost like a farewell for this place. "Carry what you have learned, for the journey continues beyond this cove." The traveler nodded, understanding the sea's words were not endings, but beginnings. Every wave they had heard was part of a larger song, never ceasing, always flowing. The cliffs behind them stood still, yet even they were shaped by the eternal tide. The traveler turned, walking inland, though the sea's presence followed within. The whispers were not bound to one shore, for Poseidon's voice traveled everywhere. They knew the path ahead held more lessons, more secrets waiting to unfold. The shell grew silent, yet its silence carried comfort, not emptiness. For the traveler now understood that the ocean's voice was never truly gone. It lived in memory, in breath, in the steady rhythm of all living things. And as the day began to bend toward evening, the traveler walked on with trust. The whispers of Poseidon lingered, timeless as the tide itself. The evening descended slowly, the sky brushed with amber, fading into deep violet. The traveler walked along a meadow where the grass whispered under the ocean breeze. Though the sea was no longer in sight, its presence clung to the air. The shell pulsed gently again, as if stirred by the quiet of twilight. The whispers rose, softer than ever, yet clearer than any spoken voice. "Even when unseen, the sea flows within you," the shell reminded. The traveler paused, letting the words settle like dew upon the heart. Stars began to appear, their light shimmering like distant reflections on water. The traveler felt the vastness of the night sky echo the vastness of the sea. Both were infinite, both filled with mysteries too large for the mind to hold. The shell warmed, carrying a truth like a thread between ocean and sky. What you seek is not in places alone, but in the vastness within. The traveler gazed upward, feeling connected to both the stars and the tide. The whispers spoke of unity, of how sea and sky mirrored one another. Look above and below, and you will see the same eternal song. The wind rustled through the meadow, carrying hints of salt from far shores. The traveler closed their eyes, hearing the ocean's rhythm hidden in the breeze. They realized that the sea's voice lived not only in water, but in all things. Every gust of wind, every flicker of starlight, carried Poseidon's gentle echo. The shell thrummed, urging the traveler to trust what could not be seen. Faith is the bridge between silence and understanding, it whispered. The meadow darkened, yet the traveler felt no fear, only quiet wonder. Each sound, the crickets, the sigh of grass, wove into a symphony of calm. The ocean's presence did not need waves to be heard. It lived in stillness, too. The traveler breathed deeply, the shell glowing softly like a lantern in the dusk. It guided them toward a small stream winding its way through the meadow. The water glistened under starlight, flowing gently toward the unseen sea. The whispers spoke again, carried by the trickle of the stream. Every river finds its way home, no matter how distant the journey. The traveler knelt, touching the cool surface, watching ripples spread outward. In that moment, they saw their own path mirrored in the water's flow. Not rushed, not forced, but guided by a deeper pull toward the sea. The shell pulsed with approval, steady as the heartbeat of the earth. The lesson unfolded clearly. Trust the current. Trust the unseen direction. The traveler rose, carrying the shell close, heart steady as the stream's song. The night deepened, yet the stars grew brighter, filling the sky with light. Each star seemed a drop of water, a reflection of the ocean's endless expanse. The whispers rose once more, their tone like a lullaby. Do not measure your journey by distance, but by the depth of your listening. The traveler understood now that the sea's voice was not about arrival. It was about the way each step, each breath, carried its music within. The meadow stretched quiet and wide, yet it felt as alive as the shore. Every blade of grass, every rustle of wind, was part of Poseidon's song. The shell grew silent again, its warmth steady, no longer in need of words. The travelers smiled, for they knew silence itself was a kind of wisdom. The stars wheeled above, timeless and patient as the tides below. The journey had not ended, but deepened into something more intimate. For now the traveler carried the ocean not as a destination, but as a companion. And under the vast night sky, with whispers echoing within, they walked on. The journey neared its close as dawn painted the horizon in gentle strokes of gold. The travelers stood upon a quiet shore, the sea stretching vast before them once more. The shell rested warm in their palm, steady as if carrying all the lessons of the tide. The whispers rose softly, not as a call to wander, but as a hymn of return. You have listened well, the sea murmured. Now carry the ocean wherever you walk. The traveler breathed deeply, heart filled with gratitude for every word, every wave. The tide rolled in, folding upon the sand with grace, as though bowing in farewell. It spoke of cycles unending, of beginnings that always wait within each ending. The traveler watched foam dissolve, knowing every parting carried the seed of reunion. The shell glowed faintly, offering one final truth, tender as the hush of dawn. The sea does not end at the shore. It flows in your breath, your steps, your silence. The traveler knelt, pressing the shell to the sand, leaving it where waves could find it. They understood the shell was never theirs to keep, but a gift to be passed onward. Some other soul someday would hear Poseidon's whispers and begin their own path. The ocean roared gently, not in fury, but in blessing, as if agreeing with the act. The traveler stood tall, hands empty, yet spirit full, carrying the sea within. They turned from the water, walking toward the rising sun with steady steps. Each footfall echoed like a wave, each breath a tide flowing quietly inside. The whispers had become their own voice now, guiding without sound or command. They understood the true gift was not in answers, but in the art of listening. The sea remained behind them, yet its presence lived in every horizon ahead. Gulls wheeled above, their cries sharp, yet woven into the harmony of morning. The world itself seemed to hum with the rhythm of tides, eternal and unseen. The traveler smiled, knowing they were no longer searching for the ocean. They had found it within, endless as the stars, patient as the turning tide. The whispers carried not promises of greatness, but of belonging to something vast. Each lesson was simple, yet deeper than any story carved in stone or scroll. Balance, patience, unity, surrender, all gifts of Poseidon's quiet song. The traveler walked on, carrying them not as burdens, but as light upon the soul. The horizon stretched wide, yet it felt familiar, like a home always waiting. The sea behind shimmered in sunlight, eternal, unending, ever whispering. The traveler turned once more, offering silent thanks before moving forward again. The whispers grew faint, but not gone, for they lived in memory now. And memory was strong enough to guide across any distance, any silence. The shell lay upon the shore, waiting, glowing faintly as waves touched it. Perhaps another would find it, hear its hum, and be drawn into the same journey. For the ocean never spoke to one alone. It spoke through all who listened. The traveler's steps carried them inland, but the sea walked with them still. Every breeze, every star, every stream would remind them of Poseidon's voice. The story was not ending, only flowing onward, like water seeking the sea. And so the journey became a song, not of storms or conquest, but of harmony. The traveler disappeared into the light, carrying silence filled with ocean's wisdom. And the waves whispered on, timeless and true, awaiting the next listener to come.